Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And in this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Derek Sherinian, a keyboard player with the heart of a guitarist, I would say.
Thank you very much. But I have to feel, since we're now new friends, it's Sherinian.
Sherinian. Derek
Sherinian.
Derek Sherinian. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. Derek Sherinian.
There you go.
I know.
Say the name, feel the magic.
Yes. Welcome, Derek Sherinian. You're also a musician that plays jazz rock as a rock fan rather than a jazz fan playing rock. And again, I want to touch on that as well. But I wanted to really touch on this album by Black Country Communion, which I reviewed on the show recently. This, to me, and it's album number 5. This is my favorite. It's the favorite. All your albums are fantastic, but there's something about this one where it feels like musicians at complete ease with each other. No one's trying to overplay. Everyone's wearing their personal influences on their sleeve, and it just feels completely natural. What was it like to you making it?
I mean, we feel very comfortable working together. I mean, we've made a lot of records, and there's a lot of mutual respect and camaraderie and enjoyment when we work together. So it's very easy, and the players are incredible. I mean, Jason, Joe, and Glenn are all incredible at what they do, and Kevin kind of keeps everything focused and controlling the chaos, and it's just wonderful. It's a great experience, and I'm glad you like this record. I think it's really good too. I think they're all really good. It's just, it's just preferences.
Yeah, but and because when I listen to you in so many different things, Whom Gods Destroy, Sons of Apollo, and I can see it on lots of different things that you play on, you're front and center. It's wild, it's metal, it's heavy, it's virtuosic, it's just amazing. And then on this, you're kind of you're sewing all the bits together, but you're gently in the background. You're like a chameleon. Whatever's required, you just dial that button.
I'm there. Like, if they want to put me to the plate and hit home runs, I'm there. But I just do what's required of me, and
yeah,
I'm just glad to be part of it. And if it was up to me, I would definitely put more solos in and more me up higher in the mix and stuff. But I'm glad to be in the role that I am.
Because there is a Zeppelin-esque aspect to some of these tracks, and you're kind of, isn't there?
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, my role, I mean, I'm looking at this as an actor playing a role, and my role is to be John Paul Jones and John Lord, a hybrid between the two, and then throw in some Emerson and Wakeman wherever it calls for it, and some Pink Floyd, And so I'm just trying to be the best of. I'm trying to be the best of all of our favorite guys, and all in one stew.
And they're there, aren't they? There's little elements of Thank You in there, drifting in to that track Love and Faith.
Oh, of course. And I even went to Jason, and Jason and I have been talking about playing the song with a trampled groove for years now, and that's how Stay Free came. It's the same BPM as Trampled Underfoot, 111. Yeah. And I'm doing the total John Paul octave on the clap. It's tying it all together. And it just has that total feel to it. And so there's that. And then the thank you nod on Love and Faith is the name of that song.
Yeah.
And totally. And I told Jason, I go, what do you think? Does it have the John Paul? He goes, absolutely. It's great. So I always use Jason as my barometer if it has for the Zepp cred,
Fantastic. And of course, you mentioned John Lord there. And I know David Coverdale described you as the illegitimate son of John Lord when you helped out on his albums. And I felt that on Figaro's Whore and Divine Addiction from Son of Apollo, the first album. It felt like you were really channeling Mr. Lord there. I mean, I know has he been an influence? Because I know he's more of a hard rock background, really.
Absolutely. I mean, I've never been in a Deep Purple tribute band. I mean, only tribute I played to Deep Purple is with David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. but before that, I've never really been in purple. I never learned John Lord solos or whatever. But what always struck me early on listening to John Lord was just the ballsy Hammond sound and the fire. And it's just an aggression that I find that very, very, very few keyboard players play with the aggression that I like to hear out of a keyboardist. And John Lord was definitely, the godfather of that, the OG heavy Hammond player. Yeah, so I love it. It's great. I always pay homage to John Lord and John Paul Jones and Wakeman, who I just did a show with in Bratislava a couple weeks ago at the Starmus Festival.
Oh, yeah.
It was fantastic playing Life on Mars with him. He was the original pianist on that Bowie album. Yeah. And so it was fantastic playing that with him live just a couple months ago.
Because when I said at the introduction, you're a keyboard player with the heart of a guitarist. There is no, because I've spoken to other keyboard players as well. Adam Holdsman was one of the most recent one I spoke to, and he was talking about how he comes from the jazz classical world. And you obviously mentioned just then Keith Emerson and Rick Wakeman, but you didn't really grow up listening to progressive rock at all. Your favorite keyboard player was Elton John. But really, where I'm going with this is that whereas a lot of people like Wakeman and Emerson came up through classical music and jazz, you were influenced by guitarists, especially full-on guitarists who, if they felt they could fit a few more notes in, they were there. So Eddie Van Halen, Alan Holdsworth, Schenker, Jeff Beck, Randy Rhoads. Did you ever think about becoming a guitarist?
I did for a brief moment, and I felt like, I feel like every musician has an instrument that they're meant to play, that their hands just lay naturally on. And as much in my heart, in mind, that I'd love to be a guitar hero, and I had to have that tough conversation with myself early on, that I felt that it was my duty I was meant to play keyboards. And if it was to be a frustrated guitar player playing keyboards, that was what's going to give me my unique style. So I just have to suffer in silence and just let it rip. And that's what it turned out to be.
Because you do play like a lead guitarist, because I mean, lots of guitarist magazines interview you and stuff. You play.
No, I know. I get that. I mean, definitely. And it isn't like intentional, like, oh, I'm going to do it. It's just so deep it's baked in when I solo. That's how I hear it. But that's not all that's not all I do. I play traditional. Like you could see my Hammond organs, my Whirlies, the Moogs, the Rhodes, Mellotrons. Like I play all traditional styles. But when I solo, that's how I express, that's how I hear it. And I stay away from a lot of the video. I feel like a lot of my contemporaries, if you will, have this cheesy element to their style, and the tones, it sounds like a robotic video game a lot of times. And I just, I stay away from that. I have my own deal that I'm doing.
Yeah. So which guitarist was the one that kind of opened the bridge over towards the jazz rock fusion world?
I would say, I was into, Van Halen and Schenker. And then I read an interview with Eddie Van Halen where he's talking about this guitarist, Alan Holdsworth, and how he's blown away by Alan Holdsworth. So at 14 years old or 13 or whatever I was, of course, I go and try to get my hands on all the Holdsworth that I can. And I'm listening going, holy fuck, this is where he's getting that wacky legato style. He's obviously been inspired by this guy. And the deeper I dug into Holdsworth, I was just like amazed. And then there was also at like age 16, right before I went to Berklee College of Music, I got into jazz fusion really hard, like Al Di Meola, Jeff Beck, all the classic Jeff Beck albums. And that was a big part of my DNA as well. So by the time I went to Berklee, I had the metal fire of Randy Rhoads and Eddie and Yngwie, but I also had the harmonic depth and appreciation for Holdsworth, Di Meola. So my whole life's mission, Phil, is becoming the ultimate hybrid of technique and feel, and the ultimate blend of fusion and hard rock. Have the fucking balls of a hard rock player, but have the intricacy and nuance of a killer fusion player. And so that's my life mission.
Well, I'd say it's coming together rather well. I mean, especially on your live stuff. I mean, this is one of my favorites. This one, the one with Dragonfly on, which is a wonderful track on its own, because that's closer to like pure jazz, isn't it? But it's great, a wonderful performance. I mean, when you wrote that, I mean, did you set out to think, I'm going to do something that's going to be quite difficult to do?
Well, I played it. I came up with a whole intro bit, and I played it for Simon Phillips, and he goes, "This is brilliant." He goes, "Let's develop it." And so between the two of us, he really dug in and helped me put all the bits together. So I want to make sure he gets equal credit for that. And as the result of that song, Phil, everyone loved how that turned out, and especially my record label. And so my next task at hand is to finish writing a piano album based off of material that's all like Dragonfly with Simon. And we're going to figure out who's going to play bass. It'll be someone, awesome, whoever it is. And, that's been a big challenge for me. I mean, I love playing piano and I have it in me, but it takes a lot of work for me to play at that level, and to write, to be able to play the stuff that I hear and write is like two different things. And so I have a lot of practice and work that I need to do and balance out with everything else in life. But that's next on my list, is a piano album with Simon.
And because if we go from there to like God of the Sun, from the first Sons of Apollo album, which I think you wrote nearly most of that, which is
all the music.
Yeah, all the music. I mean, that's completely, literally 180 degrees away from Dragonfly. So does it inspire? I mean, in your head, it must be a really interesting place to be when stuff's coming in. Do you know what it's going to be like when you get musical ideas? Do you think, I know what, this could be a Whom Gods Destroy kind of track, or this could be a piano jazz number?
I think everything finds its own home or organically, like where things should go,
Yeah.
Yeah, but like with Whom Gods Destroy, which is obviously more heavier and technical, I'm going to focus more, of those riffs in that direction, and more piano stuff towards the thing with Simon, And if I have something good classic rock that's worthy of showing the guys in BCC, then obviously that would be a good place to go. Like Divine Addiction could have been a good, that could have been on BCC record, I think. The organist of it and the whole intro, Figaro's Whore.
Yeah, I love that. I know you collaborated with lots and lots of people, and I've read that you feel that you write better with drummers, and that brings us to Simon Phillips, because you've been with Simon a long time now. How has Simon inspired your work? How important has he been to the sound of where you've gone with your solo albums?
Oh, he's been the most important musical figure in my life that I've worked with. And I mean, growing up listening to, in 1980, I was already deep into loving Jeff Beck. And that was the year There and Back came out. But also it was the same year that MSG, Michael Schenker 1 came out. And so I look, and the drummer is Simon Phillips on both records. And I'm saying, fuck, I love the way the drums sound on this. So he immediately became my favorite drummer. And then over time, 20 years later, we end up working together, starting on the Inertia album. And so we've done 5 or 6, maybe 7 albums together this far, writing, producing. It's not just him coming in and playing drums on my tracks. We're writing and he's producing and mixing. I mean, we're deep in this together,
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing, isn't he? I remember I first became aware of him on a Judas Priest record, Sin After Sin.
That's right.
And then the next time I became aware of him was, I think, just 2 years later, when he played on a Stanley Stanley Clarke album. What was it? Rock, Pebbles and Sand, I think.
Rock, Pebbles, Sand. Yeah, he was like 16, 17. And so he was, the way he describes it, he was very young in the London studio scene, like when he was working for Mike Oldfield, where all these guys were a little bit older than he was, but he was young and he was, you know, as skilled as they were, but he was still a little green at the time. But no, it's fantastic. So that was when he hooked up eventually. I think it was with Roger Glover, who connected Simon with Judas Priest, because I think Roger Glover.
That's right. He produced that. Yeah. Do you think, because you come from a rock background and you've gone into jazz fusion, do you think that gives you a different edge to many of the other musicians who made their name in jazz rock and jazz fusion, who came really from the jazz Miles Davis end, didn't they?
Absolutely. You can ask the same question of Jeff Beck. That's why he stands out. Like if you say Larry Coryell, all of those cats, those yo cats on Larry Carlton, all fantastic. But Jeff Beck has that cool fucking rock edge that separates him from those guys, that puts him at a different thing. That's why Wire or Blow by Blow, with a little help from Sir George Martin, of course, that record was a platinum record at the time. That was a massive record when it was out for instrumental.
Yeah, because no one saw that coming. Because I mean, he was coming from the same trajectory as Page and Clapton and the blues, wasn't it? Yeah.
The magic was first and foremost the juxtaposition of a rock guitar player who's not super technical, but he surrounds himself with Jan Hammer, Narada Michael Walden, Tony Hymas, who's a serious jazz and classical pianist, all of these guys. So he's surrounded himself with these heavyweight jazz guys, and then you have this rock player with the rough edges mixed in, and that was the fusion. That was the jazz rock fusion, which was beautiful, and that was the art form. And I think what's happening with a lot of fusion today, where you have a jazz guy where he grew up with Les Paul and Joe Pass on his wall, not Jimmy Page and Randy Rhoads, but then all of a sudden he gets the distortion box and then puts a little distortion on his tone. But you can tell that he never used to smoke pot and do acid and listen to fucking Jimmy Page and drink and whores, and there's no dirt under the nails. And that's the difference between guys like Jeff Beck and Eddie Van Halen, and all those guys have that fucking shit under the nails. And it's just, that's what I want to hear in a player, and that's what I want to hear out of myself.
Do you think, because you mentioned Jeff Beck, because I know one of the albums that influenced him to go down that road was Tommy Bolin from Billy Cobham's Spectrum album. And he was not really from a jazz background either. Just wonder what he might have done if he'd lived a bit.
That's a big question. Everyone wonders.
Yeah. But another great player. The other thing I wanted to mention, you've been so busy in the last 24 months, so it could be less than that. I'm trying to look at all the dates, because obviously Whom Gods Destroy is this year, as well as Black Country Communion. It's 3
months apart.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got obviously your own live album with Simon Phillips. That was last year, wasn't it?
Yes.
And also there was another one, wasn't there? Lost Tomorrows, which you did with, is it Derek Traficante?
Oh, I think that was a session I did last year.
Are you on that? Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of sessions, like from people that you've never heard of to Michael Schenker to David Coverdale. I mean, it's amazing how many people want me to play on their stuff. And I listen to everything. And if I feel that I can contribute to someone's sound, I'll gladly play, because I think music is meant to be heard.
And I just want to bounce back a bit further into your past, to 1997, to one of my favorite albums that you appear on, and it's Dream Theater, Falling into Infinity. And because for some reason this came out obviously before the internet, really, so before forums, before social media. So I just thought this was one of the best albums I'd done in a sequence of stuff coming out. Obviously, as the years have gone by, people have kind of seen it sometimes as a misstep. I've never seen it like that. These songs are so memorable, and so the melodies, and I mean, what are your thoughts looking back on this? Do you?
I think that record, that was the first real album I played on all the way through, from beginning to end. And I think for my first album, I think it's amazing how my signature style developed on that album. How you can really tell those solos, no one else sounds like that. Even to this day, it holds the test of time. And I think as far as song-wise and quality, I think that there's some great moments on that album in the midst of a lot of muckety muck. to use a Nigel Tufnell.
Yeah, turned it to 11. Yeah. Brilliant. I really like that. And you're about to do, well, you have already, I imagine, already done the session for Michael Schenker when he looks back at his UFO career. Yeah,
I'm on that whole record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He actually asked me to do the tour. We're having some talks right now. We'll see what happens.
Oh, interesting. And I guess you'll be really well behaved and not over and just sit within the mix. I'll play the UFO songs, but there's like on the album, he wanted me to solo. Like there's a few spots where there's, where I get to open up on B3 solos and a Wurlitzer solo. So, you know what? If you're gonna have me play, if you're gonna rent the Ferrari, fucking drive it. Don't just leave it in the parking lot. Fantastic. Well, see, to another extreme is in the summertime, which you do with Billy Idol, which is that's like another 180 degrees away from some other stuff, isn't it? But that's a great performance as well. You just did that in a sound check to start with, didn't you? I believe.
Yeah, we just started jamming it, and Billy started singing it, and he goes, we should record that one day. And so on my next solo record, I go, hey, do you still want to record? He goes, absolutely. And then we go, who's going to play guitar? And Billy goes, why don't we have Flash? And then all of a sudden Flash is down in the studio. And then we shot a video, and it just kept morphing, from there. And it was great.
Fantastic. So what are your next plans? You've already got 2 albums out with just 3 months apart. You've got the one with Schenker on, you're playing every track on that. Are you doing another one with Simon?
I'm working on right now. I'm working on a piano album with Simon. And then I think that there's some plans for BCC to do some stuff. You didn't hear it from me, but next summer, I think there's going to be some shows. And then hopefully, and also working on the second Whom Gods Destroy record, so we can put out sometime late next year or 2026. And hopefully we can get that out on the road and touring. As you know, it's very difficult nowadays to launch a new band and go out there without hemorrhaging lots of money. So we're just trying to figure it out. It's got to make sense, but yeah.
I just come to the end of the interview now, but when you make these albums, obviously we do the sessions because we have the magic of the internet. You can be everywhere all at once. But with Black Country Communion, were you together when that was made?
Oh, yes. Every record, it's like that. We're in the studio. Glenn will bring the demo of the song on his iPhone. We're in like multi-million-dollar studios, but he doesn't know how to send the email. So we listen to it on the iPhone a couple times, and we learn our things. Then we go in the room, play through it a couple times, and then hit record. And then we 2-3 takes at the most, and then we move on to the next song. And then we try to get like 2 songs a day, where we get all of the tracks in and overdubs. And then Glenn does the vocals afterwards. But we try to get 2 music tracks in their entirety a day. And what the beauty of that is, like what's different between that and the progressive metal bands I play in, all the progressive metal stuff is written and recorded at our own satellite studios at home. So there's plenty of time to think of your parts, hone in the sounds. I mean, you have nights to sleep on it and think of it. BCC, once we're learning it on the iPhone, it's up to you to quickly not only learn the chords, but figure out what cool parts you're going to play and the sounds. And so after doing so many of these records and BCC and other records, I just know one of my gifts is I just fucking know right away what to play, what sounds to use, and what part, and nailing it like first or second take. And it's just, all of us in the band are like that. We all have that skill. So that's why we're able to go in there and bang out a record within.
Do you work with do you work with Simon in the same way? Are you together when you're bouncing ideas off each other? Or
when we're in the studio and we're bouncing ideas, yes. But when we're recording, it's recorded separately because it's so intricate. And logistically, it's hard to get everyone that's participating on the track in one spot. And for that type of music, we do it separately. If we had the luxury of having rehearsals all together and being in the same city, then that would be the preferred way, of course. We just don't have the luxury of doing it that way.
Fantastic.
But BCC we do, and so we exercise that.
That's wonderful, and I really do hope you do some gigs, next year. If that happens, I know everyone's so busy.
It's looking really good.
Brilliant. So, if people want to find you, Derek, it's your website is
DerekSherinian.com. But I never really even go to my website. But you can find me on Instagram or X or Facebook.
So it's DerekSherinian.com, or you're on Facebook, or on Instagram, or you're on Twitter. So just put the name in, and there you are.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Derek, for your time today. It's been wonderful to talk to you. And
wonderful talking to you too. I noticed you're in Cornwall. That's like one of my favorite cities in the world. I played there with Alice Cooper in '91. Saint Austell.
That's it. Saint Austell Coliseum. Yeah.
Austell.
Yeah.
So I played there, and I remember our hotel was right on the coast. I could see this beautiful castle, and it just felt so enchanting. Like I lived there at another life, and I'd love to go back there once again.
Well, that's wonderful. So thank you so much. And it's quite early in the day for you over there. So have a wonderful day ahead, and hopefully I'll talk to you again in the future. So thank you.
I hope so. Anytime. Have a good day, sir.
And you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. A huge thank you to my guest, Derek Sherinian from Black Country Communion, but also from Who Gods Destroy, also from Sons of Apollo, Billy Idol, Alice Cooper, Dream Theater. There's so many places where Derek turns up, and he's an incredible musician. Guitar-centric, a keyboard player, and I'm so used to talking to people who came up through classical music and prog and like the usual kind of people. For Derek, all of his influences, some really are virtuoso guitarists, heavy metal guitarists. Yes, he certainly channels John Lord in some areas, and isn't that just wonderful? I love the sound of the Hammond and obviously John Lord. But his approach to playing is when he really lets rip on some really heavy metal shredding. It's like guitar, but he plays keyboards. But it's the jazz rock, the jazz fusion stuff with Simon Phillips. There's so many places I could send you, but any Vortex is another album which is really, really good. In fact, they're all good. I don't know if I've got any others around me. For those of you listening, I'm just going through my desk, see what I've got in front of me. But the Phoenix is one of my favorites because of the track called The Dragonfly on it, which is wonderful. And as Derek said, he's going to be doing a piano album with Simon Phillips, and that will be absolutely amazing. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you again, Derek, for all of your time today. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor, and we need to take our vitamins, do we not? So keep spinning those discs, stay safe, subscribe, visit nowspinning.co.uk, whichever social media channel you're on, so is Now Spinning Magazine. Anyway, I'll see you all very, very soon.